Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Mosky here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. Now for this one we're going to visit a brewery from the state of Thüringen in Germany, and you probably will recognise this brewery. They're very well known these days because they're part of the Bitburger group and so have quite good distribution. And you'll know this brewery for their Schwarzbier, of course. So today we're going to have a little look at the Köstritzer Schwarzbierbrauerei, but we're going to have a little look at the Kellerbier. And I'm quite interested to try this because I really had no idea that Köstritzer actually produced anything other than the Schwarzbier. But I found this in the supermarket and I thought, why not? I need to make a review of this guy. So as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. If you just want to go to the tasting, just click the little box that I'll put up here and that will take you right there. The brewery website is in the video description there. Check that out if you're interested, and the links to my future Köstritzer beer review is also in there as well. These will appear just over time, of course, with the way that that link works. So let's get on to the history of this brewery here. As I mentioned before, this brewery comes from the German state of Thüringen. It's actually in the very south of what was formerly East Germany, and the village that the brewery comes from is called Bad Köstritz, so it's a spa town, and it actually has a population of just over 3,600. It's just to the north of Nuremberg, for those of you wondering. But the first documentary mention of the Köstritzer brewery is in 1543, and this is on the Erbzingens register. And this, the way it was noted down was actually the Köstritzer Erbschenke, and the brewery was actually then taken over by the Counts of Reuss in the year 1696, and it was then renamed to the Ritterschaftliche Gutsbrauerei. But since 1806, the brewery has been allowed to use the title of the Princely Brewery, and this was because the Knights of the Reuss House were actually elevated to become princes. And in the year 1811, there were apparently 6,400 hectolitres of beer produced per annum, and these were reportedly being sold to Berlin, Dresden, Magdeburg, and also Frankfurt am Main in the west. But apparently the famous German author Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, he's been documented as saying that he drank a lot of beers from the Köstritzer brewery and also the Oberweimar brewery during his time actually living in Weimar. And he was apparently very good friends with Wilhelm von Humboldt, who was a German scholar. And apparently there's a letter here that it shows you on the history part of the brewery website that's quite funny. So Wilhelm von Humboldt wrote this letter to his wife, and in this letter, dated on 17th of November 1823, he was telling his wife about his and Goethe's diet, saying that they were both swimming in beer and living off the beer rather than eating meat and vegetables and stuff. And apparently von Goethe would actually sneak off to his room and drink more beer himself because he was embarrassed about how much he actually liked to drink. But anyway, in the year 1829, the brewery building actually burnt down with another 15 buildings in the village of Köstritz, and the brewery was then rebuilt in the west wing of the castle. And in 1875, the entrepreneur Rudolf Zersch actually leased the princely domains of Köstritz, Durenberg and Hartmann village, and also the brewery itself. And the operation initially expanded under the guidance of master brewer Karl Holomucki. I'm not sure if I said his name right there. It looks more like a sort of Lithuanian or Polish name than a German name. But under Karl Holomucki, in the castle, they were expanding in the other sites in the city of Köstritz as well. But at this point, the Schwarzbier and Elstatalis Lagerbier were being produced by the breweries, and there were apparently claims that the Schwarzbier had demonstrated health benefits in the 19th and 20th centuries. And there's actually a brewery advert that actually stated in 1893 this brewery advert appeared. It said, "High medical authorities recommend for the anemic, lung disease, and those who have recently given birth, nursing mothers, and convalescents of any kind, the Köstritzer Schwarzbier." So they were basically advertising this beer as a bit of a health remedy, which is quite funny. But the brewery apparently also sent Otto von Bismarck cases of the Elstatalis Lagerbier for his birthdays. I'm struggling to say that one there. But in 1896, just when they were doing this, the brewery capacity was reportedly 40,000 hectolitres of beer, and 12,000 hectolitres of this was actually the Köstritzer Schwarzbier. But between 1906 and 1908, new brewery buildings were actually built by Zerch in Köstritz. But after the Second World War, the building was apparently confiscated, and it became the VEB Köstritzer Schwarzbierbrauerei in the German Democratic Republic. And the company was actually one of the few who manufactured beer in East Germany for export, and the beer was exported to West Germany from 1956 to 76, and then later to the whole of Eastern Europe, or Eastern Europe behind the Iron Curtain, I should maybe say. But a new brewery was actually constructed between 1979 and 1990 as well. So even though the economic problems that were faced in East Germany, this brewery was one that was continually expanding. But in April 1991, the company was acquired by the Bitburger Group, and it was modernised between 1991 and 1993. And in 1993, the company actually established the Schwarzbier as their main brand in the German beer market, and the brewery grew significantly over this period. But in 1991, the capacity of the brewery, just to give you an idea of how much this brewery grew once the capitalism returned to Eastern Germany. In 1991, the capacity of the brewery was reportedly 145,000 hectolitres. In 2005, it had risen to 879,000 hectolitres, and today, apparently, it's actually reduced to 700,000 hectolitres per annum. Apparently, for their 450th birthday as well, the brewery had actually used the slogan, "The black beer with the blonde soul," which was reportedly alluding to the French spy comedy movie which was called The Tall Blonde Man with One Black Shoe. So that's your brief history of the Köstritzer brewery. Very interesting, in fact, because it's a former East German beer, if you like, and the brewery really even did continue to grow because of the quality of their beer under the communist regime that was going on in Eastern Germany at that point. But to list the other beers for you that you can get from the Köstritzer Schwarzbierbrauerei, and like I say, I didn't know they actually did other ones. Obviously, you get the Schwarzbier, which is the very famous one. You get the Edelpils, the Kellerbier here, and they also have a few mixed beer drinks, and this includes the Edelpils Radler, and there's also a cola beer as well that you can get from Köstritzer. So this guy itself is a 5.4% Kellerbier. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at that. You can see on here it says Köstritzer Braukunst, which I think it just means brewed in Köstritzer, and I think that's the Köstritz city crest that's on these beers, and it's basically the same label as the Schwarzbier, except that it's a sort of bronzy colour rather than the nice black colour that you get on the Köstritzer Schwarzbier, of course. So it's a really nicely presented bottle, this one. This guy is a half litre, and that was what caught my eye originally with Köstritzer, was how they presented the beers. And each of the different bottle caps are unique, of course, just with a different colour that you get on the label here. But you can see, I'll just bring that up again, you can see, as I mentioned, the first documentary of the evidence of the brewery was from 1543, and they say that on the bottle here. I also forgot to mention, as is usual with German beer, it's all brewed in accordance with the German Reinheitsgebot, and you can see that this little sort of gold line that you can see of text is what that says there. So let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting here. This guy is unfiltered apparently, so and that's what you would expect from a Keller beer. The whole point is it's a Keller beer and it's unfiltered. Bit of an obvious point, but anyway. So as you can see, just a little bit of a smoky opening there, and we'll just get this out into the glass and see how we get on. Quite a nice looking beer actually. A big head on it. Just sit this guy back down. Just give it a little swirl and see if we can have some of the aromas. It's a really sweet bready yeast that's in this one, a really yeasty bread that's coming out of this guy at the start. It's actually got just a little bit of a toasted aroma to that kind of nice bready malt. Let's see if I can get rid of some of the head. But yeah, it's a really kind of yeasty bread one that's coming off of this actually. There's just a little bit of caramel and brown sugar in the background, but the main component of this guy definitely is the sort of an underlying caramel with a kind of roasted bready malt, and there is just a little bit of yeasty sweetness to this. I'm not actually picking up any sort of hop element to it, but maybe it's just because the head on it's so large. But I think I maybe can just pick up a little bit of grassy hop, but it really is predominantly a kind of sweet bready yeast that's coming out of this guy first. Now I would say actually, if you take it in just a little bit more, if you sniff it just a little bit more deeply, there is a kind of grassy hop aroma just at the background there. But like I say, the primary component of this beer definitely is the sort of bready yeast with just a little bit of caramel sweetness there. So just if I lift this beer up to the light there, as you can see and as you would expect, it's it's definitely a sort of nice golden ambery hazy thing here. You've got a little bit of carbonation that's visible on this one, really not much at all. You can just see little bits and bobs coming up to the top of the head there. As you can see, a massive kind of three-fingered head on this guy, really, really big. Just get the last of this in here. A little bit of what do you call it, sedimentation, just as I'm bringing the last of it out here. That's everything. So as you can see, it's turned out with quite a nice, really big head on it. The Germans would love this beer. Just they like the sort of convex head on these things, as I've mentioned to you in many of my reviews before. But let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on. Like I mentioned, it's a 5.4% Kellerbier. So actually, first impression is that it's a very, very well balanced beer. It's opening up, definitely with the bready malts. You can pick up the nice kind of caramel malts just underlying in that here. But really you are opening up with the nice bready malts and some slightly yeasty sweetness to it as well. Like you pick that up in the aroma as well. And the caramel note is just underlying in there, and that stays with you actually through until the end of the beer. There's a little bit of spicy character to it as well, and just on the finish, the aftertaste is more the sort of bready and caramel malts with just a little bit of spice, but you're getting a nice little bit of difference in there when the grassy hop comes out. You're getting a nice grassy and sort of herbal hop that comes out for a little bit, and then it's taken over again just by the nice sort of bready and caramel flavours. It's a really interesting beer, this one. It's got quite a nice sort of journey, I guess, if you can say that, through the flavour. Yeah, when you first take it in, you're getting a nice little bit of bready and yeasty dough character to this, with the caramel just underlying. There is just a little bit of cereal spice in there as well, and you're getting that kind of comes. Those flavours kind of go in a little dip like that and come out again on the finish. And in between, you're definitely getting a nice sort of herbal and grassy hop just coming out there. But it really is. It's a really interesting beer, this. In fact, I'm not sure whether I would prefer it to the Schwarzbier, in fact, but it's very, very well done, I have to say, and I'm really glad that there's another beer from this brewery that probably could compete with the Schwarzbier there. But yeah, really, like I say, a nice sweet bready, yeasty base in this one, with the hops just coming out nicely and then fading away to give you that more kind of bready and yeasty character again. It's really nice how it has that little dip in the flavour. But I would actually say, on second thought, I think some of the herbal character from the hop and grassy character mixed together is lying into the aftertaste as well. But the bread and caramel spice is coming out a little bit more on the aftertaste too. It's a beer that has a nice little journey on it like that, I guess you could say. It's a bit of an odd way to describe it, I know, but I'm a little tired, so bear with me. In terms of the mouthfeel with this one, it's mid-bodied. It's not quite pushing the barrier of being full-bodied. Definitely a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is very low. It is actually very smooth. It's slightly dry on the finish, in fact, and it's got just a nice little bit of bitter character that kind of comes out on the middle and hits a little peak before kind of fading away. And it's a very easy drinking beer. Despite it being more of a mid-bodied beer, it is very easy drinking. And if you want something that's a bit different for a hot day or whatever, this is maybe a guy for you to try. But yeah, if you actually let this sit on the tongue a little bit, you do get a little bit more of the kind of herbal and grassy hops just on the kind of outside of the tongue. So, you know, this is I'm really pleased that Köstritz are actually doing another beer that can possibly compete with the Schwarzbier. I'm not quite sure if I prefer this one to the Schwarzbier, I would say though, but it is equally as good a beer in my opinion. I think this is very well done. I really like, as I've said in many of my beer reviews before, one of the reasons I really like German beer is for these really nice kind of yeasty and bready malt bases that you can get in this type of beer, and this one really kind of does have that aspect to it. So I really quite like this beer. I recommend that you take a look at this guy and see what you think of it yourself. So if you have tried it, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on it. I hope you found my kind of rambling on the beer informative, if you like. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. I'll hopefully not be as tired in the next one that I do for you. But please help the channel grow. Like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I thank you again for your support over my 195 or so videos that I've done for you now. But please tune in to the next one, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks again, and I shall catch you soon. Cheers.